She said, "Don't read too much into this," while standing close enough that I did. That's how the whole thing started. One sentence meant to close a door, paired with a distance that quietly opened another. And the strangest part? I'm still not sure which one she meant. Her name was Laura, mid-40s, self-possessed in a way that made every movement look deliberate, even when it wasn't. I always noticed her before she noticed me. At the campus cafe, where she graded papers, at the community writing workshop she ran on Thursdays. I wasn't her student, not officially. I just kept showing up. She didn't seem bothered by that. That night, though, something was different. The workshop had run late. Everyone else rushed out into the hallway, leaving the room too quiet too fast. Chairs half-turned, a stack of notebooks left behind. The hum of the overhead lights filling the air like it was trying to say something we couldn't. Laura stood by the window, gathering her things with a slow sort of care. I stayed behind to help, pretending to straighten the same stack of handouts twice. And she didn't tell me to stop. "You don't have to stay," she said, but her voice was soft, not dismissive, like she wasn't sure if she wanted me to listen. "I know," I replied. My fingers brushed hers as I passed her the last notebook. The touch was brief, half a second, maybe, but she paused and looked at me like she'd felt the same charge I had. Except she didn't pull back. Not right away. The window beside us reflected both our shapes in the dim glass. Her shoulder nearly touched mine, close enough that I could feel the faint warmth through her blouse. She smelled faintly of bergamot and some kind of paper dust scent, like old books warmed in a sunlit room. "You always help me close up," she murmured. "You don't have to be so reliable." It wasn't the word she meant. Something else hung underneath it. "I don't mind," I said. She let out a breath that sounded caught between amusement and something heavier. Then she angled toward me. Small shift, almost nothing, but close enough that my pulse tightened. "That's the problem," she said. "You're young. You don't think twice before getting pulled into things you shouldn't." Her eyes flicked up to mine. Steady. Searching. A little too long for the kind of warning she was trying to give. "Things like staying late to help clean a room?" I asked. Her lips pressed together. Not quite a smile. Not quite disapproval. More like she was weighing something she didn't want to say. "Don't read too much into this," she whispered. But her hand was still resting on the notebook, right beneath mine. Neither of us moved. The lights hummed. The silence sat heavy between us, almost warm. "I'm not," I said, though even I didn't believe it. She finally, slowly, slid her hand out from under mine, but not before her fingers traced the edge of my thumb. Just the faintest drag of skin. Accidental or intentional, I couldn't tell. The room felt smaller then. Or maybe we just drifted closer without noticing. Her gaze dropped to my mouth for the briefest second, too quick to be undeniable, too clear to ignore. When she looked back up, her expression had shifted into something careful, guarded. "I should lock up," she said. "I can help." She hesitated, her keys dangling between her fingers. The metal jingled softly, tiny, nervous music. "Don't," she murmured. "Not tonight." Before I could ask why, footsteps echoed from the hallway, fast approaching, breaking whatever fragile moment had been forming between us. Lara's eyes widened just slightly, and then the door handle began to turn. The door swung open, and Laura stepped back so quickly her chair bumped into her shin. A younger woman from the workshop poked her head in, apologizing for forgetting her scarf. The moment didn't vanish. It just folded itself away, like someone slipping a note into a drawer to read later. After the girl left, Laura avoided my eyes. She gathered her things with brisk movements, but her shoulders were tight, not annoyed, more like she was bracing for something she didn't want to say. "I should go," she murmured. "I can walk you to your car," I offered. She hesitated again, that same flicker I kept seeing in her. "All right," she said finally. The hallway was empty as we walked. Her stride was steady, but her arms stayed close to her body, as if she were trying not to let them brush mine by accident. Outside, the air was cool, the kind of evening where everything felt a bit too clear. Halfway across the parking lot, she spoke. "You know, I was married once," she said, eyes fixed straight ahead. 13 years. I didn't know what to say, so I let the silence hold her words. "He wasn't a bad man," she continued. "Just Someone who needed things I didn't have anymore. She rubbed her thumb against her palm, a nervous habit. Maybe, when it ended, I promised myself I wouldn't confuse anyone, or let anyone confuse me. The phrasing stuck with me. She wasn't talking about marriage anymore. Not really. I'm not confused, I said quietly. She gave a soft, short laugh, almost like she wished she believed me. You're 23, she said. You have time to make mistakes that don't involve someone my age. We stopped beside her car. A small, dim overhead light cast soft shadows across her face, softening the lines near her eyes. She looked tired, but not from the day. More like from holding herself together too tightly for too long. And you're acting like you're so much older than me, I said. That's because I am. You don't have to stand so far away to prove it. Her breath caught, barely, but enough that I noticed. She looked at me, then, fully, the way someone looks when they're deciding whether to trust their own instincts. My last relationship ended because I stopped wanting to be close, she said. I didn't expect to want that again. Not with anyone. Certainly not with someone who looks at me like. She cut herself off, lips pressing together. How do I look at you? I asked. She shook her head as if the question was unfair. Like I'm more than I am. I stepped closer, slowly, so she could step back if she wanted. She didn't. You are, I said. For a second, her hand hovered in the air, suspended between us as if she didn't know which impulse to follow. Then her fingertips grazed my shoulder, light, cautious, but warm enough that I felt it long after. She didn't explain the touch. I didn't move away. The parking lot was quiet except for the distant hum of a streetlight. She withdrew her hand, but only halfway, her fingers still angled toward me like they weren't sure where to go. Thank you for walking me, she whispered. She reached for her car door, but paused, just long enough that I knew she wasn't ready for the night to end. Not entirely. And for the first time, she didn't try to hide it. They weren't supposed to see each other the next day, but life didn't care about the rules she kept trying to draw around them. I stopped by the cafe near campus to grab a coffee before class. She was already there, seated in the corner with her laptop open, glasses low on her nose. She looked different in daylight, less guarded, more human. And when she spotted me through the window, something quick flashed across her face. Not annoyance, not relief, something in between. I stepped inside. She closed her laptop a little too fast. You're everywhere, she said, but her voice didn't match the words. It was softer, almost pleased. It's a public place, I said. I have receipts. She tried not to smile, but the corner of her mouth betrayed her. I sat across from her before she could tell me not to. Did you sleep? I asked. She lifted her coffee, avoiding my eyes. Barely. Me neither. The mug paused halfway to her lips. A charge beat. 2. You shouldn't say things like that, she murmured. You said first. She shook her head, catching her lower lip with her teeth, as if trying to suppress something she wasn't ready to name. Before either of us could say more, the cafe door chimed, and someone from the workshop walked in. A guy who sat in the front row every Thursday. He spotted Laura instantly, raising a hand. Laura, didn't know you came here in the mornings. She straightened, pulling back as if distance would erase whatever was hanging in the air between us. Oh, hey, Tom, she said, tucking a stray hair behind her ear with hurried precision. I was just working. His eyes flicked between us, too sharp, too curious. Didn't know you two knew each other outside class. Laura opened her mouth, but no words came out. Silence stretched, awkward and thin. We don't, I said. I just sat down. Her eyes darted to me, grateful, maybe, or frustrated. I couldn't tell. Tom eventually moved to the counter, but the moment stayed jagged. Laura exhaled long, quietly. That was close, she said. It wouldn't have been a big deal. It would have, she insisted, leaning in. Her hand brushed my knee under the table by accident, then didn't pull back right away. People talk. They assume things. Are those things wrong? I asked. Her breath caught again. She drew her hand back slowly, fingers tracing the edge of the table like she needed something solid to hold on to. This isn't simple, she whispered. Nothing worth it ever is. Her eyes lifted to mine, and something unspoken tightened the space between us. Tom turned away from the counter, and she instinctively shifted closer to me, her shoulder brushing mine. Too close for strangers. Too intimate for deniability. I felt her inhale, sharp, quiet, when our legs touched beneath the table. "Laura," I said, barely above a whisper. She didn't look at me, but her fingers slid toward mine, stopping just shy of contact. The kind of nearness that meant more than touching. "I shouldn't want this," she murmured. I tilted my hand, letting my little finger graze hers. A slow, deliberate brush. The smallest possible confession. "But you do," I said. She closed her eyes for half a second, like she didn't want to admit it even to herself. When she opened them again, the denial she'd been clinging to wasn't there anymore. The door chimed as Tom left. The cafe felt suddenly quiet, like the world had stepped out to give us room. And in that silence, she didn't move away. Not an inch. They didn't leave the cafe together. They shouldn't have. But 10 minutes after Laura gathered her things and walked out, I found myself following her into the courtyard outside, telling myself it was coincidence, even though it wasn't. She stood under a bare tree, arms folded, staring at nothing. Wind moved her hair across her cheek, and she didn't tuck it back. She looked tired, or maybe she was fighting something she didn't want to lose. "You left fast," I said. She didn't turn. "I had to. Because of Tom?" "Because of me," she said, voice low. I stepped closer, slow enough for her to hear my footsteps and stop me if she wanted. She didn't. When I reached her, the air between us felt thin, stretched. "You're scaring yourself," I said. She let out a laugh that wasn't amused. "You think that's what this is? What else would it be?" Finally, she looked at me. Really looked. Her eyes were sharp but tired, brittle around the edges. "You're making it too easy to forget the reasons I should stay away. And you're making it too hard to believe you mean them." Her breath faltered. A small break. She looked down at her hands, rubbing her thumb over her knuckles again. Same nervous gesture as before. "I'm 46, she whispered. "You're 23. I should be smarter." "Smarter than what?" She swallowed, throat tightening. "Than wanting you like this." The words hit harder than I expected. Not loud, not dramatic, but honest enough to leave no room for pretending. I stepped beside her, close enough that our sleeves brushed. The wind shifted. Her hair blew forward, and without thinking, I reached up and gently brushed the stray strands from her face. Her eyes widened, not startled, more like the moment forced a truth into the open she'd been dodging. "You can't do that," she said, but she didn't step back. "You didn't move," I said. She closed her eyes briefly, like she was trying to steady herself. When she opened them again, the guard she usually kept between us was slipping piece by piece. "This is wrong," she whispered, "but you're still here." She exhaled shakily, fogging the cold air between us. When she spoke again, her voice broke in a way she clearly didn't want me to hear. "I keep seeing the way you looked at me yesterday. And today. Like you see something worth wanting." Her jaw tightened. "I haven't felt that in a long time." I moved closer, not touching her, just near enough that she could lean. And she did. Barely. Her shoulder brushed mine, soft, almost accidental, but she didn't pull back. "You're not alone," I said quietly. Her breath hitched. She turned her face slightly toward me. We were inches apart now, too close for anything casual. "I don't know how to handle this," she whispered. "You don't have to." My voice stayed low, meant only for her. "Just don't run." She looked at my mouth, not for long, but long enough that my pulse jumped. "I can't," she started. But the rest didn't come out because she stepped closer instead. My hand hovered near her waist without touching. Her fingers brushed my wrist, light, searching like she was finding permission in the smallest point of contact. Someone passing through the courtyard dropped a bag loudly, breaking the moment. Laura flinched, but she didn't move away from me. She looked up, breath unsteady. "If I take one more step," she whispered, "I won't be able to take it back." And I felt her lean, just enough that I knew the next second could change everything. The moment held, fragile, trembling, until Laura suddenly stiffened, her gaze shifting over my shoulder. She stepped back so fast the air between us snapped cold. "What is it?" I asked. She didn't answer at first. Her expression hollowed, like she'd been hit with something she wasn't ready for. "That student from yesterday," she murmured. "Tom. He was here." I turned. Tom was across the courtyard, standing near the entrance, pretending to scroll his phone. Only he wasn't pretending well. His eyes kept flicking toward us, too quickly to be casual. Lara's breath left her in a slow, panicked exhale. "Maybe he didn't." "He did." Her voice cracked around the words. I saw his face. A chill worked through her, subtle but visible. Her hands trembled as she tried to adjust her coat, the fabric slipping between her fingers. "He probably just saw us talking," I said. But she shook her head, one sharp shake. "Not talking. Not the way we were standing." I didn't argue because she was right. Anyone watching would have understood more than we said aloud. Her eyes lifted to mine, wide, unsettled. "You don't understand how fast this can turn into something ugly for me. Rumors don't care about truth. And I'm supposed to let that scare you away? You're supposed to know what you're risking." She stepped past me, as if creating space could erase the danger. But when she moved, her shoulder brushed mine, lingering a heartbeat too long. The touch contradicted everything her words were trying to build. "Laura," I said quietly. She stopped but didn't turn. "What if he tells people?" I continued. "What if it gets around?" She closed her eyes, and her posture softened, not with acceptance, but with the weight of something she'd been avoiding. "That's not the part that scares me," she whispered. "Then what does?" She faced me again, slowly. Her eyes were red-rimmed, not crying, just overwhelmed, honest in a way she usually avoided. "That I didn't pull away fast enough," she said. "That I didn't want to." My chest tightened, not with victory, but with the gravity in her voice. I wasn't imagining it then. I whispered. No, her throat worked. "No, you weren't." A gust of wind passed through the courtyard, catching a loose paper from her notebook. I grabbed it before it blew away. When I handed it back, her hand grazed mine, quick and unsteady, like she was afraid of touch and need at the same time. "This is going to get complicated," she said. "It already is." "And you're not backing off?" she asked. "Are you?" Her silence was an answer, even before she spoke. "I should," she said softly. "I know I should, but you won't." The trembling in her hands stilled. She tensed, not withdrawing, not approaching, just caught in the space between want and fear. Then her phone buzzed. She flinched like she'd been burned. One glance at the screen drained the color from her face. "It's from him," she said. "Tom." A beat. "Two." Her eyes met mine, wide with something dangerous and alive. "What did he say?" I asked. She swallowed hard, voice barely audible. "He wants to talk. Today." Another pause. The courtyard felt too small for what hung between us. She stepped closer, only an inch, but deliberate. "If this gets out, everything changes. Then we decide what happens next," I whispered. She looked up at me with a helpless, drawn-in expression that made the world tilt. And despite the fear, despite the risk, she didn't step back. Tom wanted to talk today, but the message did more than rattle Laura. It pushed something hidden to the surface. By the time we reached her car, she looked like every inhale hurt. She opened the door, then closed it again without getting in. "I can't think straight," she said. "You're allowed to be scared." She shook her head. "No, that's the problem. I'm not scared of him. I'm scared of what I'm doing." The late afternoon light hit her face, softening the edges, catching the faint tremor in her hands. She tried to hide it by folding her arms, but the motion only drew my eye to the tightness in her shoulders. I stepped closer. She didn't move away. "Laura," I said quietly, "you don't have to pretend this isn't happening." Her breath came out unsteady. "If I give in to this, whatever this is, everything gets harder. Or it gets real." That made her look at me. Really look, with a depth that felt like she was peeling back something she'd been keeping caged for years. "You're young," she said, voice thin, wavering. "You get to want things without thinking about consequences. That's not fair." "It's true." She tried to turn away, but I moved with her close enough that her coat brushed my chest. The air between us tightened. She went still. "You think this is easy for me?" I whispered. Her eyes flicked to my mouth, a quick, traitorous glance she couldn't control, and her breath hitched. She looked down immediately, pretending she hadn't done it. "You shouldn't look at me like that," she murmured. then stop standing this close. Her laugh was soft but pained. I don't know how to stay away from you. There was the thing she'd been circling for days, finally slipping out. Her hand rose, almost without her noticing, landing lightly on my chest. Not holding me, not pushing me, just feeling the reality of me. Her fingers trembled against my shirt. This, she whispered, eyes dropping to her own hand, is already a mistake. I covered her hand gently with mine. Then it's mine too. She closed her eyes. A tear didn't fall, but the shine behind her eyelids carried the weight of one. I can't lose everything again, she said. Then don't lose this. Her forehead lowered until it nearly touched mine. The warmth of her breath brushed my lips. Not a kiss, but dangerously close. Her other hand lifted to my jaw, hesitant at first, then settling there with slow, deliberate certainty. The touch was warm, human, longing shaped into something she couldn't hide anymore. You make me feel alive again, she whispered, and that terrifies me. I exhaled shakily, my voice dropping to a whisper meant only for her. Tell me to walk away, and I will. Her fingers curled gently against my jaw. I can't, she said. Then choose me. Her eyes opened, raw, vulnerable, wide with the kind of clarity that doesn't leave room for denial. I already did, she breathed, and she leaned in, slowly, deliberately, until our lips brushed in a whisper of a touch, a promise instead of a plunge. Not a full kiss, not yet. Just a moment when two people finally stop lying to themselves. She pulled back half an inch, breath trembling. We can't pretend anymore, she whispered. And for the first time, we both understood exactly what we were stepping into. The softness of that almost kiss stayed between us long after she stepped back, barely an inch, just enough to breathe, not enough to undo anything. The parking lot lights flickered on above us, washing the world in a warm amber glow. It made her look younger, or maybe lighter, like she'd finally stopped holding her breath. Laura pressed her fingertips to her forehead, then let her hand fall. I don't know what happens now, she said softly. We talked to Tom, I offered. She shook her head. No, not yet. He doesn't get to define this. Not before we do. That surprised me. Not the words, but the resolve behind them. She wasn't running. Even she felt it. Then what do you want? I asked. She hesitated, not with fear this time, but with the carefulness of someone touching a wound that's finally healing. She stepped closer, big exhale, her shoulders lowering as if she'd made a decision she'd been fighting for too long. I want to stop pretending, she said. Her hand lifted again, slower this time, and she brushed her fingertips along my jawline, light, exploring, almost reverent. I leaned into her touch without meaning to. She smiled, small and real. You feel steady, she whispered. I didn't expect that. You make me want to be. A breathy laugh escaped her as she shook her head. This should have felt wrong. But standing here with you, it doesn't. I reached for her hand, curling my fingers gently around hers. She let me. No flinch, no retreat. Just her hand resting in mine, warm and certain. You're thinking about the age thing, I murmured. I always will, she admitted. People will stare. People will assume things. I can live with that, I said. She looked up, studying my face like she was checking for cracks. I needed to hear you say it without hesitation. And her voice softened. You didn't hesitate. The tension that had been coiled tight in her shoulders finally loosened. She stepped forward until her forehead rested lightly against my chest. The contact hit harder than anything so far, quiet, grounded, intimate in a way that didn't need permission. My arms slid around her, hesitant only for a moment. She melted into the embrace, her breath warm against my collarbone. We stood like that. No words, no rush, just the quiet thrum of being close after too long pretending not to be. After a while, she lifted her head, her eyes calm for the first time in days. Whatever comes next, she said, I want to face it with you. Not as something we're hiding, but as something we chose. Then we choose this, I said. She nodded slowly, her thumb brushing the inside of my wrist, small, grounding, deliberate. We do. I leaned forward, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead. She closed her eyes, letting out a quiet, content exhale, her hands sliding up my back in a way that promised this wasn't a moment. This was a beginning. When she opened her eyes again, she laced her fingers through mine. "Come on," she murmured. "Walk me home." This time, there was no space between us. No fear pulling her away. Just two people who had finally stopped fighting what was already theirs. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?